thank you all for coming out. Again, as Shada stated, this is an opportunity for the command staff to have a conversation with you all. I think this is quite beneficial for us to be able to meet, you all to have conversations with us, to be able to clear up any misinformation that may have gotten out or things that you want to follow up on that we just hadn't had the opportunity to speak about. As Shada stated, this conversation today is about what we're doing around Labor Day and as we begin to close out our summer plan as we roll into Labor Day. As you all are quite aware, we had a very volatile beginning at beginning of the year. Traditionally, we implement a summer plan. This summer plan that we had to implement was a bit different because as we began this summer, we were seeing a lot of violent activity around our clubs and social areas in the downtown space and in the Buckhead space. So we altered our summer plan just a bit to address those. This gave us the opportunity to work with other departments inside the city, such as the solicitor's office, license and permits, building permits, things of that, departments of that nature, for us to put the nuisance team together to go after these restaurants that were operating as nightclubs or nightclubs operating as restaurants. When we were able to target those locations and restructure what our responses will be to the downtown space and the Zone 2 space, we began to see over the summer to see some reductions in those areas, alluding to the fact that our summer plan was quite productive. Additionally, we are now addressing what we're seeing for the Labor Day. We have a big Labor Day weekend to include Dragon Con, Black Gay Pride, Chick-fil-A kickoff, which will bring close to 1 million people to our city just over the holiday weekend, and that's not to include people just really wanting to get out and celebrate the summer itself. What we will be doing is standing up our Joint Operations Center for this weekend. It won't be a full-blown operation, but we will bring in additional resources to man the Joint Operations Center and monitor the activities over the weekend. That will include some of our state, federal, and local partners coming in for that. Additionally, I want to make sure that we talk about what we were able to, some of the things that I spoke about at the legislation at the Assembly. One of the things I continue to get questions about is what we're doing in the Zone 2 space and why we're doing it. What we recognize in the Buckhead space is Buckhead was where the crime was elevating in Zone 2 in the Buckhead space much more rapidly than traditionally. And so we had to do a deep dive to see what we were seeing, what we could do to counter that. As the strategic planning unit took a look at it, we were able to identify that in a certain part of Buckhead, the population doubled in size every day, and that most of our units were being tied up on addressing accidents and traffic incidences throughout the day. So what we decided to do is to build up another precinct inside the Zone 2 space. It will be called the Westside Village Mini Precinct. This is very similar to what you would see in the Zone 5 space. Again, this is not just crime-driven. I know that people will ask where you have crime in other areas. No other area in our city garner that much population growth every single day. So this is not just crime-driven, but population-driven, as well as it will relieve the officers that are in that Zone 2 space to go back to patrol as opposed to just handling traffic accidents. We anticipate that this precinct will be up and running, fully operational by next year, and it should have a minimum of 24 officers by next year. Right now, what we'll do to get to that level of staffing is we will add 10% of each academy class to go to Zone 2, addition to what their standard allotment of officers will be. So we anticipate that by 2022, next summer, that they should be, that precinct should be fully operational. Right now, they will operate out of the Lenox Square precinct until we can find a location to house that unit. Additionally, I spoke about the restructuring of our Apex unit, which Chief Murphy is the deputy chief over. It used to be a division to streamline our processes and make us more efficient. I reduced that division down to the size of a section so that we can have more alignment in what we are doing in the community services division. The new Apex will now be called the Violent Crime Interdiction section, which is comprised of the Titan unit. The Titan unit is a more street-level enforcement unit. Again, this is not to replace recreate Red Dot by any means, but what we do recognize is there's a different element of street-level crime that needs to be targeted, and that's what this unit is here to do. Additionally, the Narcotics Unit will be attached to this Violent Crime Interdiction section, and they have been doing phenomenal work. They will continue to do that work in partnership with the Titan unit. Additionally, that took place on August 26th. So that unit is already, both those units are already functioning as we speak right now. Additionally, one of the things that I did was change our intelligence unit to be a gang focus unit. Previously, they were more intelligence gathering and left the enforcement up to other units. That has been restructured, that the gang unit is not only in intelligence gathering business, but they will also be in the enforcement piece, and they will partner with the Titan unit to also make sure that we have a more aggressive impact as it relates to what we're seeing around gangs. That also took place on August 26th. The centralization of our investigation unit. Again, we did this back in July 8th as part of our summer plan. What we thought and what we are confident in is that we can now streamline our investigations, housing them together so that we can be more efficient in our investigation as it relates to our units having conversations with each other, being that many of the crimes that we investigate overlap with each other. That took place on July 8th. And so I wanted to I thought that it was important that we talk about the numbers of what we saw in our summer plan. At the beginning of the summer, our murder rate was up 59%. We've dropped that down 47% since that time. Our rapes were at 103%. We dropped that down 39% since that time. Our aggravated assaults were at 34%. We've since dropped that to 22%. And auto larcenies were up 25%. We've now dropped that by 9%. So it lets us know that we still have a long way to go. I know that, crime, we're up in several categories, but we are on the right trajectory as it relates to us reducing the crime that we saw at the beginning of the summer. Right now, overall, our crime is up 9% throughout the city, with the largest emphasis being on what we are seeing around our murder. I continue to state that most of our murders that we see in the city of Atlanta are people that have some relationship with each other, and very few are stranger-on-stranger type crime. So with that being said, I'll open it up to you all for any questions that you may have, and we have the entire team here to respond to anything that you may ask. What do you think has led to those good trends with the reduction in crime? I think that it is, again, the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department, but the partnerships that we've aligned ourselves with, no, we can't do this alone. So we rely heavily on our other partners, our other departments. I think that everyone recognized that we've had a significant increase in crime, especially after 2020. And so with everyone having hands-on to address crime from every aspect, from the mayor's office to the city council, for you guys reporting the information out, I think that it's a collaboration in the community itself. You know, we still get calls from the community, meeting with the community, giving us ideas on how we can address things. I think everybody paying attention has really had an effect on what we're seeing.
Chief, how's the hiring process going?
That has improved greatly as well. I'm glad you asked. We restructured our background and recruitment section as well, recognizing that we had to change what we were seeing. We still have a long way to go as it relates to background and recruitment as well. But our attrition has stabilized. We are actually losing fewer people than we did before, and we're hiring more. We are ahead of our goal by a small portion, by a small percentage, but we are ahead of our goal as it relates to hiring as well.
Do you know how many vacancies we have in the department?
We are probably still somewhere in the 300s, but Chief Gibbs is not here to give me the actual number, but it's somewhere around the 300s.
Chief, wasn't it 352 you were trying to hire? So you're past that?
No, what we're trying to hire, so let me be specific on where we are. The mayor has asked us to hire 250 people within the fiscal year starting from July. That requires us to hire at least 5 people per week, and we are ahead of that. We hire more than that every week. So we are, I think that at last count, our goal was 40. We should be at 43 now with several that are sitting on my desk to be signed off on.
Fiscal year, Chief?
Yes, so when the mayor announced that, it was for the fiscal year.
I apologize for my tardiness. I know earlier when we had this chat, we talked about the collaboration with the courts, that there had to be stronger communication with the court systems. We're talking about repeat offenders and that sort of thing. Could you update us on some of those conversations with DA Willis's office and how you view that relationship right now?
So as it relates to the DA's office, I think that the DA and the Atlanta Police Department are in strong alignment as it relates to us attacking and addressing crime in our city and in the county. I have a strong, positive relationship with the DA. We talk quite frequently. When there are things that she feels that we need to correct to strengthen a case, we immediately address that. We call her office out on all of our murders so that they have firsthand knowledge and can work alongside of us so that we can have the best resolution to instances of that nature. As it relates to the courts, the Atlanta Police Foundation pulled together a meeting this summer for us to work through our repeat offender process and coalition, and it's still some work to be done there. But in the interim, one of the things that I did within the departments was to create a repeat offender unit so that we can actually start tracking and processing repeat offenders a little bit differently and present them to the courts so that there's no question about who needs to get off our streets.
Ideally, how do you want to see that work?
That when we give them a case that shows that a person has repeatedly victimized our community several times and they've received as many chances as they had, that we present a case to the DA and to the courts, and they can go ahead and give them the punishment and assistance or help or whatever it needs to be to get them off our streets.
Do you know how many officers have been kind of reallocated to these new units? The new Titans unit, how many officers it has working?
That continues to be very fluid. I can't say how many. I know that as soon as we started it, we moved at least 6 people over to that unit. Specific numbers I don't have, but the repeat offender unit, I think we started that out with 6 officers and then we'll be adding civilians to that unit as well. Background and recruitment, the exact same thing. So the numbers remain fluid, but every unit has been adjusted.
When it comes to the new mini precinct in Buckhead, how confident are you that it will be enough? And do you see it as just a first step in reducing crime there?
I think it's the first step in us being able to reduce crime, but one of the things we have to continue to do, I think we're required to do it every 2 years, is to evaluate what our response and do a beat realignment and analysis. I could tell you we had just done one. It did not catch what we saw in Zone 2, but it gives us something to begin working with. And if we see we need to make another adjustment, we will.
Chief, is there any update in the Katie Jonas case?
Not at this time. We still have more work to do, but I'm confident that our team is doing everything that they can to bring it to resolution.
Chief, I know a lot of time has passed in that Piedmont Park case, and from you all's perspective, things can go longer, but with so much publicity on it, are you concerned at all with the time that keeps ticking when it comes to nailing down and arresting the suspect?
You know, we always would like to arrest someone quickly when it comes to homicides and murders. We like to do that, but sometimes cases take long. Some cases take longer than others to resolve, but we get there. Again, we have our homicide clear-up rate is probably one of the best in the country, and all those cases aren't resolved immediately. Sometimes it takes us a little longer to get it, but we get there. Am I concerned that we haven't resolved it as quickly as I'd like? Not yet. I'm not at the point of concern because I know that the team is continuing to work diligently, and the attention that's on it, we continue to get calls from people throughout the community that has been beneficial to us.
I know it shocked the whole city, that killing. At this point, do we think it's random, or do we think that there might be a connection?
It's too early for us to tell. Again, we won't make any conclusion until the case is concluded. It's way too early for us to make that determination.
Can you talk more about Labor Day weekend this weekend? How concerned are you going into this weekend, and what are you really focusing on?
We're focused on all the activity that we will have in the city, but we have the resources, our partnerships. Everyone will be out this weekend, to include myself and members of this executive team, to make sure that we have the right people in the right places at the right time.
When you say festival goers, we just talked about the park, but you know you've got the jazz festival at the park, you've got Black Pride going on. What's your message to people that are going to be out in the crowds, going to these festivals, on top of everything else that's going to be happening in the city?
Absolutely. I think that if people are going to come to Atlanta and enjoy the festivities that we have, that they do so responsibly and carefully, that they monitor their behaviors and don't hesitate to call if they're seeing something that may be out of line. I think that when people can give us a call on the front end of things, it gives us the ability to resolve those.
Chief Bryant, can you address auto larceny and theft from auto as it relates to left with keys?
Thank you. One of the things you all continue to hear us preach about is the auto larceny piece, and the people breaking in vehicles and stealing weapons. That continues to be a problem in the city of Atlanta and in many cities. We just had our Corporal report out this last week. That's our CompStat meeting, our weekly meeting, and one of our zones reported that 50% of the vehicles that were taken while running in the summer. And that makes our job just that much harder. There are people that sit and wait for people to leave their cars running. And when they take, and in several of those instances, they didn't take the car far. Some of those cars went right around the corner. So we're asking the public to continue to be mindful about their behavior when inside their vehicles. Don't leave any weapons in a car. Don't leave anything visible in a vehicle. And if you have, I don't understand why anyone would leave a car running and get out of it, because, again, you're just leaving that vehicle to be taken by someone that shouldn't be in it.
You know, we talked about, you know, making strides in the Buckhead area and the Zone 2 precincts. When it comes to that community relationship, you know, you still have that group led by Bill White that says they can form their own police department and do a better job. Have you all had any communication since they've been spurring this annexation movement? And then if not, still, what is your message to them?
Yeah, I would be glad to sit down. You know, it's interesting that someone would say they can do a better job without having conversations with the police department to see what issues we may be having or not having and what we could do better. But we're always open to communication. I think that we have a strong Zone 2 commander in that space. This team is open to any conversation on what we think we can do to improve it. I can tell you that there are parts of Zone 2, the people that don't want to leave, they meet and call on a regular basis asking what can we do to improve, and we work together to get there.
Chief, can you talk about the morale? I think we kind of talked about it last time. There's this idea that there's still tension between police and the public, but last time you told me that that's not something you guys are.
You know, I don't, when you talk about morale, I don't think it's necessarily a matter of tension between the police and the public. That's not where we find our morale issue. It's generally a space of being internal, but those numbers are beginning to improve. As I stated when you asked me about where we are with recruitment and attrition, as those numbers have greatly improved, one of the things that we have to do, we have a responsibility, this team does, is going out and speaking and having conversations with the men and women of our police department, and generally that conversation is, we can tell in the tone. I just had a town hall with the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department, and it was more about administrative issues than anything else. Morale was not a big conversation in that conversation at all. Again, not to say that we are, you know, you're going to get you can go out here and find someone that doesn't have issues. We still got a ways to go, but we're getting there.
Chief, after November, there's going to be a new mayor. The city council is going to look different. What does that mean for your future as chief and the steps you've taken since being chief of the department?
Well, you know, here in the city of Atlanta, the chief works at the will of the mayor, and we'd have to get to that, cross that bridge when we get to it. I recognize that mayors tend to want to work with particular style chiefs, and I don't know. I've not had a conversation with any of the candidates running for mayor, but your guess is as good as mine. But I'm confident that they're getting a very strong police department, moving in the right direction, with the best technology that you're going to find anywhere on this side of the Mississippi.
Are you hopeful that whoever is elected would keep you on?
I'll tell you, I think that stabilization of a police department is key. But again, I recognize that any mayor wants the chief that works best for them.
Chief, you've got Labor Day this weekend, but then next weekend is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. DHS said there's going to be a heightened threat environment, threat of terrorism again. Is that something you guys have worked on yet or thinking about for next weekend?
Absolutely. So we work with the Joint Terrorism Task Force on a regular basis. We have someone embedded there. This team gets a briefing, a intelligence briefing as it relates to threats to our city every day. And so we will have several discussions as it relates to what our stance will be going into 9/11 as well.
Chief, you talked specifically about the Titan unit and that it was not going to be basically a rebirth of Red Dog. Can you tell us a little bit about what's different, what might be the same?
So I'll talk at the beginning, but I'm going to hand it off to Chief Murphy because it falls under her, and she will give them the direction. The difference is One, this is a differently trained unit addressing issues, not just street level. Red Dog was created to address street level drug sales. This is not, we're not addressing just street level drug sales. We're addressing street level crime. And they are more of an enforcement arm for narcotics and gangs. So, but they will fall at the direction of Chief Murphy, and she'll be giving them the directions.
Yeah, so basically, as Chief said, we have better training, and our officers are more working closely with our gang unit to get intelligence. So we're more so looking for areas of concern from the community or anything that we're actually seeing ourselves. And we're focusing our efforts specifically on gang activity and getting violent crime off the street. So we're looking for guns. And, you know, sometimes drugs comes with that. We're working alongside with narcotics as well to assist them with their efforts and what they're seeing. So we're really, really trying to just concentrate and focus on our concerned areas and our concerned repeat offenders.
But it's, in short, it has a broader spectrum to address than what Red Dog was formed to do. Red Dog was formed to address drugs. This is more street level crime overall.
When you talked about gangs, I know DA Willis mentioned that her office would volunteer staffers to help train officers in Atlanta to charge under the Georgia Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. She really wanted to highlight getting charges filed to meet that statute. Have you all acquiesced to that and been working together on that? What's your thought on that push?
Absolutely. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Hampton on that one. But again, when it comes to gang violence, we are lockstep with the DA, and we've trained each other's unit thus far. So whatever we can do to improve upon it, but there has been work done as it relates to us operating, making arrests under RICO and things of that nature.
So yes, we continue to work with Madam DA's, her office, and even some of her staff that's specifically assigned to her gang program. Our gang unit is one of the most premier gang units. They often charge many of those statutes already. We have a high number of gang statutes that we do go after. And as Chief Bryant just mentioned, again, with partnership with the DA's office, going under a RICO Act was something that we haven't done before, but it's something that we're definitely now starting to use more often. And so we are definitely using everything to our advantage to make sure that we bring these criminal enterprise to justice.
We have 20 more minutes. This is an opportunity to ask away. If not, I'll close it. But if you have any more questions, please take advantage of this time.
You mentioned the homicides and how we were up in the summer and we're dropping down now. It's more in line with kind of last year's number. It's not as far ahead. What factors are contributing to that? Do you think? Do you think it's just a volatile start to the year? Do you think that the department itself is affecting those numbers?
Again, I wish it's going to take some significant scientists and some historians to be able to take a look at what we saw. I don't think anyone has an answer to why we saw crime spike as much as we have, and why it continues to go in that direction. But I think, again, the strategies, the partnerships, everyone being focused on us trying to beat those numbers down has contributed to what we're starting to see. We've got a ways to go, but I don't think anyone knows at this point what led to the surge.
Chief Bryant, I think this will be a great opportunity to address our public safety training center that we hope that we will have.
Absolutely. So that's a big vote coming up this week. Next week. And we are hopeful that the council vote in favor for our new training facility. The training facility, I think, will do a number of things. One, it will house not just our recruit, but give us the ability to train the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department to be not just as stellar as we are as an agency, but to improve upon what we're doing, giving the citizens of this city a better police department. Quite often, people continue to ask, can we move to different places, and can other agencies take us on and assist in training us in their academies? And the answer to that is absolutely not. We are so large, our department is so large, that if we shared with any existing agency right now, we could not train more than half of our police department. Our police department, we utilize our training facility we utilize our training facility every day of the week. And it's not just for recruits, it's for training this entire executive team and men and women of our department. There are times that we may have a class that specializes in something. There are times that we may have to leave here and go train for maybe 2 hours on a mandate that may come out from the courts. So for us to be able to do that, sometimes we pull officers off of the street to go to training for an hour or two. And so if we had to move, the ideal place for us to do that would be smack dab in the city. But what we recognize is that we will not be able to get that footprint inside the city. So I think that where we're going is the best place for us right now and in the future. We're not building a police department for today. We're building a police department for the next, the police academy, public safety academy for the next 50+ years. I can tell you, I graduated out of our the first training facility, and at that time it was a few trailers. It is in better condition today than it was when I went through the academy, and it's substandard now. The training academy that we were utilizing at the school was in horrible condition. I would get calls, and one of the reasons I thought that it was important that we moved out is when I would continue to get calls saying the sewage had backed up and our recruits could no longer take showers because the sewage was backing up into the showers. This was a constant call. Not only that, but the ceilings were falling in. We could not hear because of the planes going over, but we had to make do with what we had. But the reality is if we'd had to keep dogs in that facility, people would have protested. But this is where we were training the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department.
What would you say to the residents both here and in DeKalb that they're adamant that this not be built? They don't want to see this.
I think that they have to take a look at it, listen to what we're trying to do. This facility years ago was a prison farm. We're upgrading it. They're getting a much better product. It is. I know that quite often people think that it's a forest. From the documents and the studies I've seen, it is overgrown weeds, and I think that it will give them a much better landscape than what's there now.
I want to circle back to the Piedmont Park case. So many people keep writing us about who they think the suspect is. Have you all ruled anyone out, or have you chiseled away at this is not?
It is still an open case. No one is ruled out. We've not focused in on any particular person. It's still an open case.
I think something we've been hearing going off of that is just women are fearful. It's been over a month and they think no one's been arrested. So what are you going to tell those women that are, wanting to take their dog on a walk?
Well, right now what we would ask people to always do is to be careful, be mindful of their surroundings. But we immediately put a response into place in that area to make sure that we were doing everything we could do to keep the people safe in that area. There's still a lot of questions that we have right now. We know that we've not seen that type of activity since then, but be mindful, be careful, continue to be vigilant about of their surroundings.
Would you say, like, my husband after it happened, he didn't want me walking the dog after 8 p.m. in our neighborhood. Would you recommend against that right now?
No, there's no indication. I mean, you know, the city of Atlanta continues to thrive. People continue to move about our city. I think that when we have acts like that, it is concerning, it is frightening. But right now, there's nothing to indicate that anyone should alter what they're doing, other than continue to be very vigilant about their surroundings and what they're in the time and places that they're going.
Have you all had process with the camera today, if they are functioning fully and making progress in integrating them?
We continue to work on our camera systems daily. So Chief O'Connor is not here, who would be more, who could advise you specifically on where we are with those cameras. But I can tell you, we have continued to evaluate. I was just in a meeting on yesterday on how we can better upgrade the camera systems that we have in place. So it's something that is still important to us.
Specifically, the one in the park that was showing what happened, have you all?
Still working on that. We're still working on it. City owns just over 1,000, but we have over 10,000 ingested in the video integration center.
And that's a combination of like some
Public, private, yes,
So if you like a bank or something, you can register your camera.
correct,
And then that shows up in the integration center, right?
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Right, here's the rest of it.
About the cameras, after the murder, the mayor had a press conference, and she had the COO talking about the cameras, and he cryptically talked about the cameras in the park. Were the cameras recording it in the park? He danced around that. He talked about operational, and he used a lot of words, but never came out and said whether the 9 or 7 cameras in the park were actually recording.
So I think the difficulty in us being able to answer that is those belong to the conservative, what is it called?
Conservancy.
Right, it belongs to them. And so we, because all cameras that comes into the video integration center do not record. That's the problem. All cameras don't record, and we still have to get with them to see what they were able to say, if they could, and we haven't gotten there yet. You would think it was simpler. I'm not a tech person on being able to say why it would or wouldn't or where would it be. I'm not that person. I know that they still, every time I ask, we're trying to get more information.
Thanks, sir.
Tell me, what's the most impressive thing that the public should know about the fall plan?
Oh, I'm sorry, the fall plan, well, it gives us the ability to redirect from where we were throughout the summer. The fall plan requires us to be more pay more attention to what we are seeing inside the residential communities, and now we can incorporate, we don't have to spend as much time in the downtown space because we begin to see activities reduce in the downtown space during the fall.
Is that because tourism drops?
Absolutely, because tourism began to drop, and so now our attention more aggressively is in the communities.
All right. Chief, what can you tell me about this?
So we restructured and made it a section, and it's the violent crime interdiction section. And that's comprised of our Titan unit, which is our street level officer unit that goes, specifically to focus on our violent crime areas in conjunction with intelligence that they get from our gang unit and from our narcotics unit. They work collectively together. That's something we are now making sure that we do more. We have our units, our internal units working closer together and making sure that the information that they're gathering, that they're focusing specifically on those areas or those locations or those individuals. Also in the violent crime interdiction unit is also our narcotics unit and our canine unit. So all of them work collectively with our other violent units and criminal investigations to focus a little bit better on our violent crime issues.
So Chief, how does that differ from what APD already does?
Well, one thing is the interaction between our units. We've developed more on our intelligence unit We now have a gang unit that's focusing more on the gang issue, and we're using these units to basically communicate better with each other and work, in other words, they work together better as opposed to working in different areas, more of like, a concerted effort together.
I could tell you this, one of the issues that we were having, again, I think people were misconstrued as it relates to what we were doing in the area of gang. Previously, we were more gang intelligence and working long investigations and having to break them up long term. With this unit and the redirection, refocus that they will have is a more immediate enforcement. So not only are we trying to dismantle a gang from the top, we're taking the lower level gang members off the street with this unit as well.
So before it was more of a long view?
Absolutely. We were doing the long investigations and turning over a case file to the DA after we had gotten this long, elaborate case. We are no longer just working the long game. We are actually, if we recognize that you are a low-level gang member and committing a crime in the city of Atlanta, the Titan unit is coming to see you.